She nailed a bright red paper on my fence and shouted, "You're trespassing. This land belongs to the HOA now." I was still holding my hammer, sweat dripping down my neck. The wood frame I'd been building for the porch was half done. The land had been nothing but ashes when I bought it. Burned, forgotten, left for dead. I rebuilt it piece by piece, every board, every inch. And now this woman in a pastel suit, holding a clipboard like it was a weapon, was claiming it was hers. I laughed, thinking she was joking. "Ma'am, I bought this land legally. Got the deed right inside." She crossed her arms. "Deed or not, you can't just build here. HOA regulations forbid reconstruction without approval." Approval? There wasn't even an HOA here when I started. The old one was dissolved years ago after the wildfire. But she didn't blink. She had that look, like she'd already decided I was the problem. Then I noticed the truck parked behind her. It wasn't city enforcement. It was her son's pickup. But it had Neighborhood Compliance Unit printed on a magnet sign, fake as her smile. "You've got 48 hours to vacate," she said, "or we'll have to take action." I stayed silent. Not because I was scared, but because she didn't know who she was talking to. She turned to leave, heels crunching the gravel. The red paper fluttered in the wind. I tore it down slowly, folded it, and slipped it in my pocket. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from anger. "I fought for this land," I whispered, "and no fake HOAs taking it from me." That night I checked the deed again under my porch light. It was real, signed, sealed, and mine. But there was something strange at the bottom, a name I hadn't noticed before. A signature. Hers. Viral line. I rebuilt my life from ashes, and now she's trying to burn it down again. The next morning I woke up to the sound of an engine rumbling outside. When I stepped out, 2 men in neon vests were already at my gate, snapping pictures of my house. One of them carried a clipboard. The other was setting up a tow hook on my old Ford truck. "Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing?" I yelled, walking down the porch. The taller one didn't even look up. "We got an order from the HOA, vehicle violation. Non-compliant structure on restricted property." Restricted property? My stomach turned. "This is my land. You can't touch a thing here?" Just then, that same woman, Karen, the one with the red paper, appeared again. She had her phone out, filming. "Sir, you are being documented for obstruction. Please step back." I could feel the heat rise in my face. "Lady, you're trespassing again." She smiled thinly. "You don't understand. The HOA reinstated this zone, and as president I have full authority." That word, president, hit me like a punch. HOA president? There wasn't even a neighborhood here, just burned out lots and 3 half-built homes. She was making this all up. I pulled out my phone and started recording too. "Okay, then show me your authority," I said. "Show me your paperwork." She hesitated. Her smile flickered. "It's being processed," she said finally, waving her hand. The men exchanged glances. I caught it. They weren't sure either. But they kept working, unhooking my truck instead of towing it. Karen noticed, glared at them, and hissed, "You'll regret this." She stormed off, but not before tossing another envelope at my feet. When I opened it, my heart froze. Inside was a fake legal notice with a court stamp that looked almost real, except the judge's signature was one I recognized. My late wife's father. Viral line. She thought she could scare me with fake papers. She had no idea she just woke up a soldier. That night I couldn't sleep. The envelope sat on my table like a warning. My wife's father had been a federal judge before he passed. His signature was sealed on every property deed in this county. And now someone had forged it. Someone desperate enough to fake legal documents just to take my land. By dawn, I'd already made up my mind. I drove into town straight to the county clerk's office. The clerk, a kind old man named Harris, had known my wife. When I handed him the fake notice, his eyebrows shot up. "This isn't from us," he said, turning the paper over. "The seal's wrong. This is a color print, not embossed." He looked at me, voice dropping. "Who gave you this?" I told him everything. The fake HOA, the fake enforcers, the woman calling herself president. Harris sighed. "She's been a problem. Been trying to register a new HOA under a dissolved charter. If she gets enough signatures, she can try to claim abandoned lots, but yours isn't abandoned." He tapped my file on the computer. "You paid taxes right on time. You're clean." For a second I felt relief until my phone buzzed. A new message. Notice of eviction. 24 hours remaining. Attached was a photo of my home, taped with bright yellow stickers across the door. They'd done it while I was gone. I rushed back, tires screaming against the dirt road. When I got there, the gate was broken open. My truck hood was up. My generator was gone. And standing by the door was Karen, smiling like she'd won. "Told you this was coming," she said softly. "You should have left when I told you to." I clenched my fists, forcing myself to breathe. "You're trespassing on private property again." She stepped closer. "Not for long. By tomorrow it's mine." Then she whispered something that froze me. "You think you know who owns this land? Ask your wife." But my wife was dead. Viral line. When she said my dead wife still owned the land, I realized this wasn't about property. It was personal. Her words echoed in my head all night. Ask your wife. It didn't make sense. My wife had passed 3 years ago, long before I bought the burned land. She had nothing to do with it. Or so I thought. I spent hours digging through old files, letters, anything with her handwriting. Then near the bottom of a dusty box, I found it. A folded property survey dated 8 years ago. My wife's signature was there clear as day, right beside the same plot number I now lived on. My breath caught. She had once looked at this land. Before it burned. Morning came, but before I could process it, I heard engines again. This time it wasn't pickup trucks. It was 2 black SUVs, real law enforcement logos. My stomach tightened. A sheriff stepped out, hand resting on his belt. "Sir, we received multiple reports of illegal occupation and property fraud. You need to come with us." Karen stood behind him, pretending to be concerned. "He's been threatening me," she said, voice trembling just enough to sound believable. "He forged documents to claim HOA land. I was scared for my safety. It was a trap. Every eye was on me." I raised my hand slowly. "Sheriff, I didn't forge anything. That woman's been impersonating HOA authority. She forged this." I pulled out the fake notice with her stamp on it. The sheriff glanced at it, then frowned. "Where'd you get this?" She taped it to my door. Karen's act cracked for a split second. "He's lying!" she shouted, pointing at me. But before I could say another word, one of the deputies stepped forward, whispering something to the sheriff. His face changed instantly. He handed me the paper back. "Sir." "This signature belongs to Judge Harlan?" "Yeah," I said. "My late father-in-law." The sheriff turned toward Karen. "Ma'am, you said you got this order from county court. Care to explain how it's signed by a man who's been dead for 3 years? Karen froze. Her phone slipped from her hand. The sheriff's tone hardened. "Step aside, ma'am. We're gonna need to check a few things." I didn't smile. Not yet. Something told me this wasn't over. As they led her away for questioning, I caught sight of one of the deputies pulling out a second document from her car. It had my wife's name on it, and below that, in bold letters, transfer agreement, executed but unsigned. Viral line. She didn't just fake a deed. She found something my wife never told me. That night, I sat in my half-finished living room, the sheriff's taillights fading down the road. The quiet was heavy, too heavy. I spread the document they'd pulled from Karen's car across the table. It was old, water-stained but clear enough to read. Transfer agreement, executed but unsigned. Buyer, Harlan Trust. Seller, private entity, redacted. Property lot, my land. And right there, under witness to transfer, was my wife's name. My heart sank. She had known about this land. Maybe even planned to buy it. But why had she never told me? And what did the Harlan Trust have to do with Karen? Before I could think further, a knock hit the door. 3 slow knocks. I opened it to find the same deputy who'd whispered to the sheriff earlier. He looked nervous. "Sir, you need to see something," he said, handing me a manila folder. We searched her car. There's more. Inside were photos, old ones, of my wife standing next to Karen, smiling, laughing. They weren't strangers. I stepped back, confused. This has to be wrong. My wife never mentioned her. "She's been digging into your records for months," the deputy said. "She claimed this land was promised to her by your wife's estate. But there's no legal record of that, none." My head was spinning. Karen had known my wife. Maybe that's why she picked this property. It wasn't random, it was revenge. I walked outside, staring at the land I'd rebuilt from ashes. The wind carried the faint smell of smoke like the fire that once destroyed it. For the first time, I wondered if that fire was ever an accident. My phone buzzed again. An unknown number. One text, you think I'm the villain? Ask your wife's brother what she hid from you. I froze. My wife didn't have a brother. At least that's what she'd told me. Viral line. She burned my land once, but now she was burning my truth. I didn't sleep. The message kept replaying in my head. Ask your wife's brother. But she never had one. Her parents died years ago. No siblings, no cousins close enough to count. Or maybe that's what she wanted me to believe. By sunrise, I was already on my laptop digging through old records. Anything with her maiden name. Harlan. It didn't take long before I found something that made my stomach twist. A news article, dated 12 years ago. Local developer charged with land fraud. Brother and sister involved in dispute over burned properties. The siblings? Karen Harlan and Emily Harlan. My wife's name was Emily. I just sat there staring at the screen. Karen wasn't just some self-made HOA president with a clipboard. She was family. My wife's sister. The sister she'd never told me about. I stepped outside, heart pounding. Everything made sense now. The familiarity in Karen's voice, the way she'd said, "Ask your wife." She'd been waiting for this moment for years. And maybe she was trying to finish what started before the fire. That's when I heard tires on gravel. Karen's SUV rolled up again, slow, deliberate. She stepped out, no pretense this time. Her voice was cold. "You finally figured it out," she said. "She took everything from me. The land, the trust, the name. You think you're building a home? You're building on my inheritance. I didn't move. So you forged documents, faked an HOA, and tried to frame me. For revenge?" She smiled bitterly. Revenge? No, correction. Behind her, 2 men stepped out of the SUV, same ones from before, but this time armed. Not cops, not enforcers. Just hired muscle. She tilted her head. "You can hand over the deed, or I can take it." I looked her in the eye. Calm, steady. "Karen, I fought in a war for land that wasn't even mine. You think I'm walking away from land I bled to rebuild?" Her smile faltered. What she didn't know was that I had cameras hidden all around the property. And the sheriff's office still had my security feed linked after the last visit. I hit one button on my phone. The faint sound of sirens echoed in the distance. Viral line. She thought she was taking back her family's land. She didn't know she was walking into a live sting. The sirens grew louder, cutting through the morning air like a warning. Karen's men froze, glancing at each other. She didn't move, just clenched her jaw, eyes locked on me. "You called the cops again?" She hissed. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Within seconds, 2 patrol cars slid to a stop behind her SUV. The same sheriff stepped out, hand on his holster. "Step away from the property, ma'am." Karen turned toward him, voice breaking into that same fake politeness. "Sheriff, he's the one. He's threatening me. He's got weapons inside. Enough." The sheriff cut her off. "We've been watching your little operation since last night." He lifted his radio. "We've got footage. Everything you and your men just did caught on his cameras." Her face drained of color. The men beside her tried to back away, but the deputies were faster. Handcuffs clicked one after another. Karen stood alone now, trembling. "This isn't how it was supposed to go," she whispered. I stepped closer, keeping my voice calm. "You forged a court document. You stole from me. You threatened my home. Why?" Her eyes filled, but not with guilt, with rage. "Because she left me nothing," she shouted. "Our parents' land, the trust, the inheritance, she gave it all to you. Some stranger she met halfway through her life. You didn't deserve it." The sheriff nodded slowly. "That's motive enough. You're under arrest for fraud, trespassing, and impersonating legal authority." As they cuffed her, Karen turned to me one last time. "You think you know the truth? You don't even know why she bought this land." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She smirked through her tears. "This isn't about property. This is where she buried the truth." I didn't understand at first, but when the deputies loaded her into the car and the dust settled, I noticed something I'd never paid attention to before. A small stone marker near the old oak tree. It wasn't part of the new build. It had been there long before, half covered in dirt, but carved with a single word. Promise. Viral line. She lost her freedom, but left me with one last secret my wife took to her grave. When the patrol cars disappeared down the dirt road, the silence felt heavy again, different this time. Not tense, just unfinished. I walked toward that old oak tree. The one I'd always thought was just part of the burned forest that somehow survived the fire. The marker was there, half buried in the roots, the word promise carved deep into the stone. I knelt down, brushing away the dirt. My fingers hit something solid underneath, a small metal box, rusted and sealed shut. My chest tightened as I pried it open. Inside were a few water-damaged papers, a photo, and a note in my wife's handwriting. The photo stopped me cold. It was of her and Karen years before I met her. They looked young, happy, standing right here in front of the same oak tree. On the back, written in faded ink, it said, "For the home we'll build together, no matter what burns down." Then I unfolded the letter. If you're reading this, it means the land survived. And maybe you did too. Karen and I bought this place after the fire. It was supposed to be our way of starting over, but greed broke us apart. I walked away to protect her even if she'd never forgive me. This land, it's not about money. It's where I buried our promise. Keep it safe, for both of us. My hands were shaking when I finished reading. For years I thought my wife had left behind only memories. Turns out she left me a message, a piece of peace I didn't know I needed. The sheriff came back later that day to finish paperwork. He looked at the stone, then at me. "You gonna keep rebuilding?" I nodded. "Yeah, but not just for me anymore." He smiled. "You've earned it, son. Some people fight wars overseas. You fought yours right here." As the sun dipped low, I placed the letter back in the box and reburied it under the oak, right where it belonged. The burned land was quiet again, but it didn't feel dead anymore. It felt like it was breathing, alive, waiting. I looked out over the house I rebuilt from ashes and whispered, "I kept your promise." Viral line, final. I didn't fight for this country just to lose my own ground. And now, the land that burned us brought our truth back to life.